Thank you for coming today. The presentation today on mastering mentoring is a reenactment of an original presentation I gave at the 2016 Augie annual meeting, where I received the Hiram J. Friedsam Mentorship Award, a great honor for which I want to thank my colleagues, 2 faculty, 2 students, and my dean for nominating me and giving me the exciting opportunity to reflect on my own experiences with mentorship, an inquiry that brought up many memories and led to some unexpected discoveries I look forward to sharing with you today. The Friedsam Award is considered one of Augie's, the Association for Gerontology and Higher Education's, highest honors, bestowed upon someone at the height, or perhaps near the end, of their career. But my own process of digging into mentorship uncovered something I had always known on some level, and that is that mentorship is a reciprocal relationship, and that at whatever stage of our academic and career pursuits, we are always mentoring and being mentored. And so I invite you, as colleagues, fellow faculty and students, lifelong learners all, to follow me on my journey of discovering the characteristics of an ideal mentor and the path to mastering mentoring. As I describe my journey, think about the experiences in your own life through which you discovered what mentoring and mastery are all about. I grew up on a strawberry and raspberry farm to this romantic couple who met when they were both berry pickers, living during the summer with their siblings, joined by their working parents on the weekends in a camp, which is now a city park of old-growth Douglas fir trees near the family home where I now live. A few years after their berry-picking years, they married and bought a few acres to start their own farm on exactly the place where they had been berry pickers. They were my first mentors. I don't recall their explicitly teaching me, but I do know I observed and absorbed some key lessons about mentoring and about mastery from them. From my father, I learned about passion as the key motivator on the path to mastery. He was passionate, even obsessed, about learning everything he could about berries, planting the seedlings and nurturing them through the harvest. He spent most of his waking hours in the fields for all but the short winter season, collaborating with the Oregon State University Extension Service on all the latest developments and new varieties. He was hands-on, attuned to the weather, the soil, the air, the nutrient needs of his plants. He strove to be the very best and was the one all the other farmers in the area turned to for advice and guidance. My mother was the people person. She handled all the picking, the hiring, and management of the pickers, who were mainly local elementary and high school students. The bookkeeping, keeping us fed, and keeping everyone happy. Theirs was a romantic, round-the-clock, throughout the year partnership in their romantic venture. I started picking at age 5 or 6. Remember, this was in the days before there were child labor laws. And by 13, I had graduated to become a crew boss, channeling the very best of both of my parents. I loved my job being there, rain or shine, surrounded by hardworking people, being part of the venture, and having a great time in the process. What I learned from this first mentorship is to follow your heart and do what you love doing, even against great odds and in the face of naysayers. To appreciate that great harvests start with the planted seedlings and required devotion, nurturing, hard work, and constant attention. Being present, or as I might put it today, being mindful. To share your passion and collaborate with others in work and in learning. And finally, to enjoy, to savor, to really have fun with whatever it is you are doing. Mountaineering, seeking the peak experience. Chimborazo in Ecuador stands at about 21,500 feet, but it's on the equator, and so is known as the highest point from the center of the earth. This was my biggest expedition. An incredible experience I recall in great detail and with rich visual and sensual memories, even though it was 40 years ago. Maybe because of traveling so far, immersing in a new culture, maybe due to the high altitude and the lack of oxygen, or maybe the endorphin rush and the immersion in and deep connection with raw nature. It was thrilling. But always my favorite mountain was Mount Rainier in Washington State, a mountain I got to know up close and personal from yearly backpacking trips as a teenager and young adult. Climbing it was my first expedition-style mountaineering experience, and again, the rich, vivid memory stays with me to this day. The attraction of mountaineering is the breathtaking, awe-inspiring majesty of the peak. It just draws you in. But the reality of mountain climbing is more often like this: trekking through the crowds towards a destination that your compass tells you is there, but which you can't really see. And the dynamic, or as my husband Samir wanted me to say, the dialectic of mountain climbing is that it's the awe-inspiring peak that pulls you in and motivates you to climb it as you envision yourself standing triumphant on the summit at the top of the world. And what is so ironic or dialectical about it is that it is the arduous process of getting there that is truly exhilarating. I think this is the origin of the truism that it's the journey, not the destination, that matters. Another aspect of mountaineering is that it requires intense training, learning technical and rescue skills, teamwork and cooperation, roping up to cross crevasses, protecting and relying on everyone in the team, and being led by the guide, the most highly skilled and knowledgeable one. At the same time, it's an intensely personal and internal experience, a test of your stamina, your fortitude, powering through the pain and weathering the elements. Despite all of that, it comes down to being a peak or summit experience. Now, I want to say that this photo is not me. My summits were always freezing, blizzardy whiteouts with blasting wind that prevented me from, with my huge gloves on, from getting my camera out. And even if I could have gotten the camera out, there was nothing to take a shot of anyway. But I love this picture for what it symbolizes. What I learned about mentoring and mastery from mountaineering is that it starts again by being driven by a passion, a vision of your goal, a vision that stays with you and motivates you to keep going even when you're dead tired and weary or in a whiteout. It takes extraordinary effort from the training through the climbing process itself, but even that often miserable process is exhilarating. It's a team effort. You follow the guide and are attuned to your fellow climbers, but at the same time, your climb is yours. When you reach your goal and you master that summit, you may not see the summit and the view, but you do feel it and know it in your heart. I carried these lessons from berries and mountains throughout my early adult life, being mentored and guided into mastery. Two experiences in that young adult life stand out and taught me new dimensions of mastery and mentoring. As an old age assistant caseworker, yes, that is what they really called it, in San Mateo, California in the early 70s, back when Ronald Reagan was the governor of California, I learned basic social work skills, dutifully following the rules and regulations of the welfare system. Reporting, documenting, interviewing, conducting field visits, but soon discovered that serving my clients, especially single older women who desperately struggled to keep their lifestyle and their autonomy, meant that I had to advocate for what they wanted, which often clashed with what the system wanted them to do. I thus found myself at odds with that system, a rebel with a cause, but no power. In frustration, I eventually resigned and looked to graduate school as a way to gain legitimacy to bring real change. Now remember, I was in my 20s. So after getting my doctorate in sociology, I detoured through a trip to the Middle East, where I soon found myself directing a human rights center in the occupied Palestinian territories for over 15 years. Another very long story. But for my purposes here, I learned another lesson about mentoring. Human rights is at its heart advocacy, something I had learned as a caseworker, but with a huge difference. In human rights work, you almost never experience positive results in changing the underlying situation or redressing human rights violations. You listen, you witness, you become a voice for the voiceless. I can't point to any successes in stopping any human rights violations, but I did learn from the field workers I trained and from the many people I encountered under the most dire of circumstances. There is something empowering in simply surviving and surviving in dignity. Being there in solidarity, listening, witnessing, also empowers the mentor. From berries to mountains, to the old age assistance caseworker, to human rights, I learned how to be mentored and how to mentor. And I learned something about the reciprocal nature of the mentoring relationship. I also learned some things about mastery from observing my mentors, by mastering some skills, and from experiencing some summits and peaks, real and metaphorical. To pull this together and apply it to gerontology, I turned to Richard Green's epic book, Mastery. Flipping Green's mastery focus to zero in on the role of mentoring on the path to mastery and on the process of mastering mentoring. The mentor guides the mentee through 4 stages, supporting and motivating the mentee to discover the seedling of passion, what really moves them, to undertake an apprenticeship, acquiring skills and knowledge. You can pick the mentoring model that fits you, or the apprenticeship model, and to enter the phase of what is called creative action and relishing the pleasure of pure creativity. And finally, reaching mastery and transcending the mentor. The mentoring relationship through those 4 phases depends on mirror neurons, those magical neuronal firings that define the uniquely human ability to experience a similar sensation when doing something or only when observing it. That amazing process that allows us to put ourselves in the place of others, to imitate them, and to put ourselves inside their minds and imagine what they might be thinking. Practicing this ability to think inside, spending hours observing, gaining deeper levels of understanding, practicing and developing skills, rewiring our brains as they engage with and create new realities. This is what leads to mastery. Mentoring is a relationship that changes both the mentor and the mentee, and it's reciprocal. So to sum up, through my journey, I discovered these 7 characteristics of the ideal mentor that one recognizes in a good mentor that you're seeking, and also serves to understand what it means to be a good mentor. The first is that the mentor has a passion, and they encourage the mentee to discover her passion. The mentor is a guide on the path to mastery, to the peak experience, whatever that is. The mentor teaches and models the knowledge, the attitudes, the skills, and what we call in gerontology now that we are developing competencies. It's all about competencies that are needed for mastery. The mentor motivates, encourages, and supports the mentee's goals, is an advocate on the mentee's side in solidarity, and empowers by listening and being and witnessing, being there, and represents and supports a success or mastery mindset. So I want to make a special note about the fact that often the mentee needs a mindset shift to move toward mastery, and the master mentor knows ways to make that happen. Mastering mentoring in gerontology is all about 3 things, and I want to say that in my original talk, I focused on what we do in higher education, but gerontologists are working in many fields, in many places, and so these 3 elements of what it means to be a mentor as a gerontologist apply to all of those settings. The first is that the gerontologist mentors in how to do gerontology as a field, those knowledge, skills, and attitudes that you would be acquiring that are applied in practice. So that can be in a classroom, or it can be in a training setting in a workplace. Secondly, it is how to be a professional in the field. It's how we keep ourselves up to date in the field, how we network, how we are active in organizations, how we advocate for and defend our programs or our organizations, how we actively take on ageism, and how we advocate for public policies that address the needs of older persons in an aging world. These two functions of teaching how to do the field and also how to be a professional are something that would be shared in any profession or any position in higher education. And perhaps the most important and certainly unique for gerontology is that we also are called upon to mentor in how to age well. Mentoring in these three arenas is, first of all, accomplishing just by modeling how we do it, how we are, what we are as gerontologists, and how we age well. But the impact of what we do is always enhanced and supported by building a scaffolding or a framework through which mentoring occurs for the benefit of mentees and is also mastered in practice by the mentor. In other words, we don't do things in a vacuum, and we can't be 24/7 in contact with people that we are mentoring. So we build programs, we build supports. And in the PCC Gerontology program, we have built this scaffolding over the years, the many years that students have been going through the program, and in collaboration with many partners, both at PCC and in the community. They first of all are designed to promote that mindset shift to success and mastery, to completion, to employment, to lifelong learning, and to other creative innovation in the field. And it's through the courses that we offer, the career pathway model that we employ in our program, the advising, the internships, the student clubs, the Ageless network that we have, newsletters and bulletins, community partners, peer mentoring, and particular, we here at PCC have branded our program to embody that mindset shift, that we are all geronauts. And finally, we mentor in a mutual support network. Some call it a family, with our colleagues in the field, in our departments, in our communities, in our professional organizations, and beyond. I provided just this one photo of being with Bill Thomas at the Second Wind Tour, but it represents so many relationships that are a part of that supportive network. So if I were giving this presentation last spring, my talk would have ended here. But then one night, on my way home from a fabulous Ageless Network meeting, I was rear-ended on the freeway by a small truck traveling at about 55 to 60 miles an hour. The impact of this event took time to sink in. As I was pushed into an established car accident protocol of urgent care, referral to a meat factory emergency physical therapy clinic, and prescribed painkillers and muscle relaxants, I refused, not wanting to increase my emerging sense of confusion and disorientation. My notes from those first few days reflected that I felt like an alien, outside of my body, observing the strange world around me and the stranger I had become to myself. I quickly bailed out of the meat factory physical therapy clinic, visited my naturopath, who understood what I was experiencing as soon as she saw me and how different I was from our last meeting, and started an acupuncture, massage, and chiropractic treatment regime with some anti-inflammatory and neurosupportive supplements. I rested, I slept, and continued with this routine of recovery. Within a couple of weeks, I was back in my body, but still felt trapped in it and in a brain fog, still observing the world and me as changed in ways I couldn't quite grasp. Thanks to climate change-induced extraordinarily sunny and hot weather during the summer, I swam daily, did water aerobic exercises, which was all the exercise I could do, and I slept in the shade. At times, I wondered if I would ever get better, and that's a very scary place to be. But I was even too tired to even worry about it very much. From Norman Doidge's book, The Brain That Heals Itself, which was introduced to me by one of my recovery mentors, I knew about neuroplasticity. So I knew there must be a way to change what was happening in my brain and my body, but I wasn't really sure how to engage it in a positive direction. Then serendipitously, my new physical therapist introduced me to a functional neurologist who, as it happened, used many of the therapies and exercises Doidge had described. And slowly, gently, as neuroplastic therapies require, the fog started to lift and my recovery moved forward on a new level. But I didn't return to normal because I simply couldn't do and be in the way I was before the accident. I started to do things differently. I let go of all the excess energy I had expended on worry, bureaucratic frustrations, petty conflicts, and other stressors. I got a lawyer to deal with the insurance company and got my dean to advocate for my workplace accommodations. I let go and forgot about what I couldn't do. I prioritized what really mattered to me. Realizing I had limited productive time, I didn't bother with things I didn't care about. And I stepped back from being a mentor and became a mentee. My recovery mentors, a couple of whom are here in the room today, listened, encouraged me, and observed positive changes in me. I am so grateful to them. I asked for help, and amazingly, I got it. People were so willing to do that. I delegated, and again, I was amazed that people were willing to pick up the delegations, and in the process, a community was created around me in a way that, was there before on some level, but I think was really enhanced and deepened. And my new mindset emerged. I realized that the 60-hour-a-week stress, worry, perfectionism, the crazy standards I had set for myself, all were part of a mindset, a way of being in the world that simply did not work for me anymore. And frankly, no one else noticed or even cared about all of the worry and the standards and whatever it was that I had held myself to before. That shift changed the way I mentored. I listened better and more deeply. I became more flexible. I got it when someone said, "I just can't do that now." I became more patient, and I urged others to be more compassionate with themselves as I had learned to be with myself. And it changed the way I am aging. I no longer put off for tomorrow what I really want to do today. I no longer waste my time on nonsense, whatever doesn't make sense to me. I'm in my body. I'm attuned to it. I'm healthier, more in sync with my life passions, more connected with those I love in my life. And that in turn makes me a better mentor, a role I love. Thank you.